in terms of like the pressure when the congressman from Arizona called for pressure because of SB 10 was it 1070.
Right.
I mean, listen, boycotts work, especially when there's millions of dollars involved. Like protesting can only do so much. Money talks. And if somebody says, I'm going to cancel something that's going to inject $5 million in your economy during a recession, that is something someone pays attention to.
Right. I mean, I'm with that. And my immediate reaction to, like, the boycotts on the state were, you know, I felt a little tentative about it. I didn't feel like it was the most effective way. I mean, like, what are your thoughts on it, Mary?
I'm not going to say anything about this.
You good?
Yeah, I can't.
Okay. All right.
I love you, but I can't.
All right. I mean, as far as like continuing, sort of whatever is going on and like the groundswell of it, I feel like if anything is going to be affected, now will be the time. I think the biggest thing, or the biggest point of contention I have is sort of the problem with maintaining momentum, especially with the millennial generation. You know, everybody gets excited for a certain period of time, but if something isn't sort of
one of those
done immediately, it's kind of like it kind of fades, unfortunately. And I know, you know, I'm almost certain there are a lot of you know, politicians who are waiting for that millennial wave of malaise to sort of pass through. And
what is this BS reputation that millennials have gained? Oh, really is. Oh my god.
You don't think that's accurate?
No, I don't think that's accurate in the least. Like, not even. That's just like some kind of weird perception projected by a bunch of lonely writers who've been writing these like the same stories for like the last.
Wait a minute. What? Are you saying that's not true?
I'm saying that's not true because the evidence points to that not being true. The millennial generation is more involved politically than the last generation who's writing these articles, which to me is just crazy. They vote at a higher rate. They donate at a higher rate. They volunteer at a higher rate. It's just like, what is this coming from? What is this anecdotal evidence based on?
I'm talking about like sort of the ADD of millennial generation. I'm not saying that they're not active, and I'm not saying that
You're part of that generation. When you say they, why are you saying they and you're part of that generation?
Well, I mean, I don't look at myself exclusively as a millennial generation.
You are definitely a millennial.
I understand how that goes, but I can also see sort of a dividend line. I can identify with some things from Gen X as well. Just because
no, you can't, dude. No, you're not a millennial.
I feel.
I hate to burst your bubble.
I understand your perspective, Mary, but I feel that I can identify with Gen X a little bit, not completely. I understand that I'm I'm part of.
But you shouldn't. But let's be factual about where we are. Okay. Right. Although you feel like you're part of Gen X, you're a millennial.
No.
Everything in terms of how I could speak to you marketing wise, for a millennial, you will jump on like crazy. Now, you speaking as someone who's not in the millennial generation doesn't make sense. Like, you can say that although you are a millennial, you don't feel as if those character traits qualify to you as an individual, but to speak about millennials in a way that's negative by removing yourself from it, although you're part of that generation, is silly.
Well, I feel like I can objectively analyze the generation. You know what? If you want to put me part of that, that's fine. But that doesn't mean I still can't analyze that generation.
Let me see what I'm saying. For the demo that you are a millennial. That does not mean that I'm saying that you are assigned millennial traits as an individual, but don't be on the podcast and be like, millennials do this, when it's like, no, wait a minute, you're in the same age demographic as millennial.
You know what? I'll accept that. So,
that's all I'm saying. I could be factual.
Okay. I'll be a millennial. That's fine. As someone speaking from my generation, that makes y'all feel better. As a millennial, I recognize, the short attention span. Like, there's increased ways, for people to be active, but I just feel like there are times when certain issues tend to fade more than others. I don't know if this is going to be one of them. How relevant will boycott of Florida and sort of the legacy of Trayvon Martin, how relevant will they be by the end of the year? I don't know. I feel like that's something that's an important point here. One of the offshoots of this whole situation is our black intelligentsia, namely Cornel West and Tavis Smiley, just acting a fool. Cornel, he's had his issues with the president and his way of governance for a very long time. He's been very vocal about them. A lot of people will say that it's a personal agenda.
It is,
and I would agree with that.
I'm gonna be honest here. Why do you think it's a personal agenda?
Well, I think it's a personal affront. What was that?
It's a tax of a personal nature.
Right.
Like, this policy attacks always veer into the personal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not in the sense of like, oh, I'm offended by this action. More of like, I want to attack your character based on anything. Like, he used to be able to have a policy discussion where he can critique the president in honest and sincere ways and point out serious flaws in his policy without having to go like name calling. He can no longer stop name calling. And it's always... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Anybody who critiques the president that's a person of color or black automatically gets assigned that you're shitting on the president.
No.
So it doesn't matter.
That's not what we're talking about. That's not what we're talking about.
No.
That's completely different.
Yes, it is. Because
With
anybody...
Tavis Smiley and Cornel West? Hell no.
Let me tell you something. There's nothing wrong with criticizing the president. I
all the time.
I criticize the president. Nobody has an issue with that. The issue is the manner in which they approach it. They're not realistic with their approach when it comes to the president. It's a no sum game for them.
But I don't think we're realistic with what the president is supposed to be doing for black people. Like, we have a totally high expectation for Obama to do a lot of stuff because he's black. And I think that a lot of black folks need to get off that, and they shouldn't have voted for him based on that reasoning.
Well,
there's a lot of promises
that's the whole point.
that Obama made that he did not fulfill.
Right.
That have gone backwards. There's a lot of stuff he signed into law or has signed bills on that are mad problematic, especially this term so far. But I feel like many people of color, not just Cornel, not just Tavis, went into the decision-making process for the voting booth thinking that Obama's going to make the White House black. Mm-hmm. There's going to be dashikis worn on live television during every address or statement or whatever that's going on. He's going to say, like, I just don't think that people were realistic with what a president is supposed to be assigned to do. I don't think Obama understood what he was going to end up having to do the full time. I don't think anybody knows what they're going to do until they step into the situation.
Right.
But for people of color, we got to get off the fact that because Obama's black, he's supposed to do things in a way that we all think a black person should be doing.
That is literally what Tavis Smiley and Cornel West are getting at him for.
Yeah, but there's a lot of us. Go ahead.
But they're the voices of that, like non-logic. Like, they're getting at him for things that just don't make sense, and sometimes just quite frankly seem petty. It's not like the major policy criticisms, like his not addressing the poverty situation in America, is not his like defense of the basically violating all his civil liberties when he spent his life as a constitutional scholar and campaigned against Bush's violation.
The Patriot Act has been changed so much during his term, it's not even funny. He signed the No Trespass bill, which means you can't even protest on a federal ground unless you're going to get arrested with a felony. That was Obama. So I'm just saying, like, let's like.
But what I'm not saying criticism is not valid.
I'm not anti-Obama. I'm just saying, like, I think it's sad that this is the route that they're choosing to go. Mm-hmm. But their route is reflective of a lot of people that had the belief or have the sustained belief that because he looks like me and acts like me, he's supposed to only care about the progress of my people within the United States of America. I'm not going to say what I really want to say, but the thing is that a lot of the system, in terms of how the justice system is set up, how all these things are set up, are not made with our rights or really human rights in mind. So whenever you try to placate to the games of we expect justice to be served, why wasn't Trayvon served justice? The system isn't set up so that that can happen. Stand your ground is not a human rights-based law. Right. So if people who read and really knew law, as opposed to just going up on random things and saying things they don't really know because they took 20 seconds and read Huffington Post blog and now they think that they're lawyers and pundits, you got to look at the hard facts of like what makes this country this country.
I don't disagree with you. The argument here isn't that what they say isn't always valid. I completely agree that it's a major issue that, you know, innocent children are killed in Pakistan, Somalia, and Yemen, you know, in the name of drone strikes and whatnot. You know, I believe that's morally reprehensible. But at the same time, that speaks to Obama being a product of a democratically elected system as being exclusively a product of the black community. And once you get past that, then he's like any other president. He just happens to be black. So the over critique of him, as opposed to not addressing George Bush when he was in office or not addressing any of the other world leaders, I mean, to be completely 100 with you, it seems unfair and it seems borderline petty based on something else. And I mean, there are plenty of articles that point to where his angst may come from. Like Cornel, during inauguration, Cornel couldn't get tickets, but he noticed, like, I believe there was a janitor who got tickets to inauguration. He said, that's pretty odd. And like, Brother Obama wouldn't give me tickets and so on and so forth. Or Tavis, where Obama wouldn't come to his State of the Black Union thing because he felt a certain type of way about it. They all have their own personal things.
I think Obama skipped as a senator too, even before he became president.
Right. I mean, Cornel, he called Obama the global George Zimmerman. You know, you could take that as you please. You know, it's kind of yeah.
That's a dumb comment. Like, listen, like Obama's done a ton of stuff. The defense, he does terrible crap every day. I can say that without even like a flinching, because that's just actually true. Mm-hmm. Like, as our conversation is being recorded right now. Speaking of which, I love America. Just want you to know what the fans say. Put that out there. He does that every day. That still doesn't mean all of a sudden he's the global George Zimmerman. What?
Right. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, and really anybody is concerned, I think they embarrass themselves. They've been embarrassing themselves for years, and they will continue to do so as long as the president's in office. And, you know, I used to have the immense respect for Cornel, and at one point I had respect for Tavis, but that's gone by the wayside. Not because of the critique of the president, but because of how they choose to address him and how they choose to address other, you know, members of black intelligentsia who they feel are supporters of him, which is anybody who has anything positive to say about President Obama. You know, that's just problematic. What'd you say?
I know they had some issue. It's either Cornel or Tavis had an issue with Melissa Harris.
Yeah, Melissa Harris Perry. Al Sharpton. You know, they say any reporter from MSNBC is on the Obama plantation. Meanwhile, Cornel is frequently on MSNBC. I don't know what that says about him. Yeah. He's just the other side to the puzzle.